The issue of the cancer-causing chemical formaldehyde in furniture will also be discussed in Parliament. 6 MPs have filed questions such as potential regulations on contractors and imports of building materials, as well as steps to tackle health concerns. Now, if you remember, this comes after we ran a story 3 weeks ago about more homes seeking help for high formaldehyde levels. Now, our reporter Sherlyn Seah has more on this issue, and she's with us again in the studio to tell us more. Sherlyn, welcome. It's been 3 weeks now. Tell us more about the situation at hand and what's happened since your earlier report.
Well, so basically, since that first story, ad, it basically garnered a lot of traction online and it even went quite viral. The clip alone on YouTube, it's garnered close to 240,000 views. Wow. And if you take a look at the comment section, it's just a lot of buzz there. Basically, a lot of people shared a concern about that formaldehyde in homes, some of them even experiencing it themselves. So I had actually even asked some of these MPs for comment, and I was actually just preparing to come on air to share off all of these updates when we got the news today that they would actually be discussing the issue in Parliament. So quite hopeful progress there. And if you recall in my previous story, we actually found a woman who had high levels of formaldehyde at home, and she had engaged a specialist to basically treat the whole house. So recently I paid her a visit again to check on the situation, and unfortunately that nightmare is just not over just yet. Let's have a watch. It's been a month since this house underwent treatment to remove formaldehyde across several problematic wooden cabinets across the unit. But as you can see, even now the house is still vacant, and that's because remarkably the pungent chemical smell is still present in some of the rooms. For example, the master bedroom over here. You'd be able to see that the homeowner has removed all the drawers for extra ventilation, and even over there they've installed an industrial fan to ventilate out the formaldehyde. Formaldehyde levels have crept back up to 0.25 ppm, past the safe level of 0.08. The family of 4 living here is now trying every trick in the book. They have spent hundreds of dollars on extra fans and air purifiers, as well as using old-school methods like placing coffee powder or charcoal packs in the cabinets. They have even tried taking out all the drawers and panels to place under the sun. If these don't work, the desperate homeowners may resort to dismantling all the cabinets. Another house is also grappling with the cancer-causing chemical and shoddy workmanship. It's making life difficult for Jay and Nicolette, who haven't been able to settle into their 2-room condo unit since January.
This area is my study, and I wasn't able to work in here at all since we moved in because I feel that maybe these cabinets were the cause of what was stinging my eyes. So I would leave this open to air it out for as long as I can, like during the day. But for some reason, it just never went away.
So this cabinetry here was where there was a very strong smell as well, and it used to sting our eyes. So throughout the renovation period, we tried to air as much as we can, and then after we moved in as well, we placed a really big air filter and to run it 24/7 to try to get rid of the smell.
With 5 fur kids under their care, every corner had to be safe. The couple is seeking legal action against their first interior designer and has hired a new one to redo the house.
We have had to extend 4 months at our previous place. We had to pay extra rent there. And then after finding a new interior designer, the new interior designer is going to take 1 month to re-renovate our place. And so that costs money as well. And we have had to find a place to stay in the meantime for a month. So that all kind of adds up, and we feel like it's only right to claim for these costs.
Sherlyn, so we are seeing different approaches taken by different families, and in cases such as Nicolette and Jay's, they are actually considering to sue their contractors. How do you think that's likely going to play out?
Well, so I spoke to some lawyers, outside of this case, and they say that these would basically be civil disputes, when it comes to civil disputes. So that's basically between the homeowner and the ID firm or contractor. So technically, because when you look at the current laws, too much formaldehyde in home is actually not an offence. So even when harm or inconvenience may be caused. So more likely the issue will be settled out of court using what's called a letter of demand to basically demand certain claims, and then the parties negotiate the matter. But even then, the homeowner does have to prepare, a whole set of evidence and documents as a lawyer lays it out for us.
And you might want to sort of get somebody to test, right? So at least you have got a sense of how bad the issue is, right? I think that's the first step. If you don't even have that, I think it's quite difficult. Once you've verified that formaldehyde is a problem, then I think you can then go and try and engage the person who did this stuff for you, or who supplied the furniture or supplied the paint to you. Yeah.
So I imagine that the whole process would be very tedious. What other avenues are there for homeowners who are affected, Sherlyn?
So certainly, like you said, the whole process can be quite tedious, and not everyone has the resources to basically take legal action. So the lawyers do say that actually it's better for homeowners if there are certain government-regulated stipulations or regulations to give these cases more teeth, so that in the case where there really is harm caused, then necessary action can be taken. And on this note as well, so I checked in with several agencies. So starting first with the Housing and Development Board, because they do have a directory of approved renovation contractors. But I've learned that these only look at matters such as structural safety or waterproofing, and unfortunately formaldehyde doesn't quite come under their purview. So similarly, in the case of the Building and Construction Authority, they do award certain what's called green mark certifications for buildings that do meet certain formaldehyde emission standards. But then again, that is all a voluntary scheme. But when I reached out to the National Environment Agency, that's where I had some luck. And it said that it will be reviewing all these feedback from homeowners regarding formaldehyde in renovations. And it's also reviewing some best practices internationally before considering any potential new controls. But afterwards, I also did speak to an association that represents about 130 of such contractors and ID firms. And they do say that such laws can actually level the playing field and get everyone to play by the same rules. So, but in the meantime, the secretary, which I spoke to, he also runs his own ID firm. And let's have a watch as how exactly he's taking matters into his own hands.
All right.
These cabinets are made of what's called eco-ply, plywood that has almost no cancer-causing formaldehyde. Interior designer Russell has made the switch to this healthier alternative and shows me it's easy to tell the difference.
All right, you can literally smell, there's no smell. And there's of course 3 color variations, So what do you differentiate between the normal plywood and eco-ply? If you can look at the seams of it, it's a bit greenish.
That's because they have been treated with a preservative which lowers formaldehyde levels. He's hoping other interior designers and contractors, especially smaller or older ones, can offer such alternatives and let customers choose. This includes other materials like aluminium with no formaldehyde at all.
The homeowners should make the choice. It is in your home, it is your health, you should make the choice, and then the contractors will source it for you. Of course, RCMA, we always give options to our members, telling them where are the options to go and source for all these so-called low formaldehyde or eco-friendly products.
But he says right now almost the whole industry is still relying on imports of ordinary plywood from many different overseas sources.
We need to buy the eco-ply and the low formaldehyde glue from our side, and we send to the carpenters. In this way, we will assure that the carpenters are using the correct one and not the normal plywood. And of course, there are forms to be signed here and there.
I asked him if cost could be an issue since eco-ply is 20 to 30% more expensive. But Russell thinks this shouldn't matter in the long run.
If more players are adopting it, the costs are going to be averaged now and for the benefit of the whole industry.
Moving forward, he hopes the government can get things going, especially since there are many types of firms, from carpenters to plywood suppliers involved in the industry.
Formaldehyde can come from very sources. It may be from the plywood, it may be from the resin, it may be from the glue. So as a whole, it's very difficult to just to ban the plywood and not the glue also. And there's also formaldehyde in varnishes, wood flooring. So I think there should be a guideline, at least a guideline that to enforce that it shouldn't exceed a certain level.
Russell, they're proposing for a guideline to be enforced, Sherlyn, but if potential regulations do kick in, what are the challenges that firms may face?
Well, so some of the contractors in ID firms tell me that this may be tough, especially for some smaller or older firms, because they may not even know of the harms of formaldehyde in the first place. They've been so used to it for so many years, and they also may not know where to buy the right material. So a set of guidelines or resources that could be helpful for them. And some firms are also hoping that there is enforcement of a different kind to basically prevent false advertising of some firms who may say that they do have low formaldehyde products. So one lawyer tells me that basically the best way forward is to actually put all of this into writing in some sort of law. And let's have a listen.
Put it all down into a statute, and maybe at the end of that statute, put in a schedule of the different poisonous materials that have or could be used in building materials. So that is one possible way of doing it. So then as a contractor, it is also easier for me because now there is clear written legislation in a statute which tells me what are the steps I need to do in terms of my duty of care, my standard of care, and so on, to be sure that I do not violate the law.
So earlier, Sherlyn, you said that NEA is studying international best practices. I'm curious, what are other countries doing to regulate formaldehyde?
Well, so Shah, let's start perhaps first in the region. So China, for example, residential indoor formaldehyde concentration limits were set as early as actually 1995. And then they were then readjusted in 2002 to meet the World Health Organization's recommended limit, and that is 0.08 ppm. And if you remember in Singapore, that is actually the level only for air-conditioned spaces, and that again is just a standard and it's not regulated. And meanwhile, elsewhere in the United States, there was a ruling in 2016 that basically restricted the emission of formaldehyde in plywood to 0.05 ppm, and that's for such materials produced there or imported in. And most recently, the European Union, just recently last year, they announced some rules, which I think is the strictest I've seen personally. And furniture and wood-based articles containing over 0.05 ppm, they basically can't be placed on the market, and this will take effect in 2026. So I think certainly we can keep our eyes peeled on how tomorrow's Parliament session may unfold, and certainly if any new regulations may be explored.
Definitely, MPs will definitely have a lot to discuss tomorrow, Sherlyn. Thank you very much for speaking with us. That was Sherlyn Seah, our reporter on formaldehyde cases in Singapore.